Chinese leader Xi Jinping taking direct aim at the United States yesterday during its legislative session. Chinese state media quoted him saying there's Western countries led by the United States have implemented all-around containment, encirclement, and suppression against us, bringing unprecedented severe challenges to our country's development. A recent Gallup poll shows 50% of Americans now view China as the U.S.'s greatest enemy. Meanwhile, China is boosting its military spending by billions. I spoke with the Gatestone Institute senior fellow Gordon Chang about this yesterday. Watch.
The military is using its influence to get a larger and larger share of the resources of the Chinese regime.
Joining me right now is the chairman of the Institute for the Study of War, Fox News senior strategic analyst, General Jack Keane. General, it's always a pleasure. Thanks very much for being here this morning. General, the Wall Street Journal writes, Mr. Xi's comments mark an unusual departure for a leader who has generally refrained from directly criticizing the U.S. in public remarks. He did criticize the United States yesterday in this annual legislative session. What do you make of it?
Well, yeah, usually his remarks are kind of opaque and indirect. He does speak directly against the United States, certainly in internal communication to his government officials. I think what's really going on here has to deal with his domestic audience primarily. One, at home, he knows that the COVID lockdowns cause huge problems with the Chinese people. And secondly, he bungled the vaccines. I mean, his vaccine was largely ineffective by comparison to the United States and European vaccines. And now they're attempting to recover economically from that. But I also think it's some of the international pressure that he's feeling, and he wants to deflect that international pressure, much like Russia has done for 20 years under Putin, where he's always accusing the United States and NATO as encroaching on him. And that's really for his domestic audience. Xi's taken a page out of that chapter. What am I talking about here? Well, first of all, I mean, the obvious thing that happened just recently is the United States revealed that China is considering providing military equipment, lethal aid to Russia. And that exposure, I think, number one, surprised him. Number two, the EU took a strong reaction to that. One of their major trading partners is China, and they said this would be a red line for them and it would have economic impact on the relationship. That, I think, stunned President Xi. The second thing, certainly the spy balloon itself. As much as we feel we bungled the spy balloon here in the United States, it exposed to the international community that China has spy balloons in 40 countries on 5 continents. And that certainly has resonated in terms of how comprehensive China's penetration is. And yes, are we attempting to contain China? Is that an accurate statement? Are we also attempting to deter China from conflict in the region? You betcha. We are doing that. And this administration, while I've been critical of them because of our military erosion, the fact is they have strengthened the allies and partners in the region with the Philippines, 4 or 5 more bases, Japan stepping up, increasing their defense budget. Australia has stepped up as well in terms of AUKUS, the relationship of Australia, the UK, and the United States. So China feels certainly that the United States is leading a coalition, much as it's leading a coalition against Russia and Ukraine. The United States is leading a coalition against China. And well, I mean, their domestic audience feels some of that themselves.
What are we doing? What do we make of all of this surveillance? What are they doing, General? I mean, like, China is now claiming that the U.S.'s worry over the Chinese shipping cranes being used for spying is, quote, paranoia. The Journal, of course, reported that Pentagon officials are looking into concerns that the Chinese cargo cranes used at 80% of U.S. ports are using or could be using technology to monitor American logistic operations, so they can see what kind of, packaging and containers are going in and out. They could have military equipment. We know that the spy balloon had a specific path over our military installations. So the surveillance of our military and military installations, is this all about what we're doing for Taiwan or just getting ahead of us in terms of military? Is this going to turn into a conflict, China versus the U.S., putting Taiwan aside?
Well, I mean, this is part of the most comprehensive penetration of the United States in our entire history. And I don't think we're necessarily surprised by the revelation that they've got electronic means on these cranes. That certainly, I wasn't aware of it. The American people are not aware of it. But given how massive China's penetration is, it's not surprising. And we got to have a wake-up call here in terms of, what is really happening. President Xi has said time and time again that he sees the United States as a declining power and he wants to replace it as the world's global leader. And to do that, he must dominate economically, he must dominate militarily, and they have the most rapid growing military in the world. They must dominate technologically and geopolitically. And technologically, I may say, the Australian think tank ASPI came out with their recent report, and they said China is rapidly becoming the world's leading superpower in science and technology. Of the 44 advanced technologies that they track, China is #1 in 37 of the 44. China has the top advanced research centers in the world are in China. And as much as they steal our intellectual property, many people think, well, that's the basis for their advancement. But no, that is part of the basis for their technological advancement. The other part is their huge investment in advanced research and how that is also advancing them. Remember, they want to dominate technology-wise, and they're on a path to do that. Huge wake-up here, and that's why I applaud Gallagher's committee on China, because I think it's going to help the United States and other members of the Congress to understand the seriousness and how comprehensive this threat really is.
Well, Mike Pompeo will say that, sure, they're in a leadership position on that technology, but they stole it. Okay? Getting to #1 was through the intellectual property theft that has been going on, that China has been doing against the United States for decades now. And by the way, let's just end with this other story in the Journal that says the U.S. is not yet ready for the era of great power conflict. This is something you've pointed out a number of times, saying that the military has shifted focus on China and Russia after decades fighting insurgencies, but it still faces challenges to produce weapons and come up with new ways of waging war.
Well, it's absolutely a fact, and I've been talking about it for years on your show. We're outgunned, we're outmanned. It is a fact. More ships, more airplanes, certainly more missiles, offensive and defensive. We know now, based on recent reports, that the defense industrial base in the war games that we play, we run out of missiles in a week or two against the China threat. These are very serious issues. We've got to arm Taiwan and help train them, and we've got to get more capability into the Indo-Pacific region, and we have to get advanced technology moving in the right direction with a budget that reflects all of that need.
Well, we'll see what the president says about defense spending in his budget on Thursday, General. We want to be talking to you about that as well. Good to see you this morning, sir. Thank you.
Yeah, great. Have a great week, Maria.